So how about that guy proposing to his girlfriend in front of Mourinho? look, look, to each his own. But that was an interesting video there. I wonder if it's the first time Mourinho's been proposed to in front of. Maybe I would ask him to be the officiant at my wedding, but you know what? More power to that guy. It worked out. He got a lot of publicity for it. Hopefully, his fiance is happy about that too. You know, I saw the look in her eyes when he first grabbed her arm. She knew that something was about to happen. Must have been quite the experience. But even so, even if you think it's silly or whatever to do it in front of at a training, it was still really cool, and it's like I'm watching it, and it's a really special moment. Coming off of my wedding a couple weeks ago, which I'll tell you is, I suppose until you have a kid, or if you had a kid, then it really does feel like your wedding is the most important day of your life. So, full credit to that guy. I hope it all works out for him and his girl. On the Roma front, so it's Saturday morning here in the East Coast, Jersey City, where I live, and a lot's been going on. A lot of rumors, some that make sense, some that seem to me a little bit costly. But the one thing that I always love about Pinto that he's shown so far is that he does these deals behind closed doors, so to speak, in that they're all kind of secretive. Like Kumbula, he arrived. I think Pinto signed Kumbula. That was under him and not Petraki. Pretty sure that they're done without a lot of transfer links to them, that they're kept relatively away from the spotlight, out of the journalists' eyes. So that's the thing that I really admire about the way that he does things. So back to this week, though, it's been massive, right? Social media content and just the hysteria has been insane. We see a mural go up about Dybala, fans wearing, supposedly record number of jerseys sold in one day, exceeding Ronaldo's for Juventus in Italy. So he's setting these types of records and getting murals painted about him and songs, yet he hasn't played one game yet, and that's pretty outstanding. But what he did do this week so far was he scored his first goal in training, and it was a nice one. It was a tap-in. But what was cool about it is actually the guy who assisted it to him, which is Volpato, a player who I really admire and one that I think is going to be a gem of Rome in the future. I know I've spoken about him here before a little bit, and some people who really watch Roma's Primavera are hot on him as well, and they believe that he will be the next big thing. I also do. When I read that Sassuolo were really interested in him in the deal for Fratesi, I was a little nervous because I didn't want to lose him. I said, okay, well, if that happens, I just really hope that they put a buyback in, because I think that Volpato could be the next big thing. I imagine that he will eventually go on to be an Azzurri player as well. And once you go to Sassuolo, it's very hard to deal with them, as we see now. Lorenzo Pellegrini came back to Rome after being transferred to Sassuolo. That was a tricky deal, and now we see it again with Fratesi. So we'll see what happens, but the Squinzi family is one of the top 5 wealthiest families in all of Italy, so they really have the bargaining power. When it comes down to it, they have the upper hand. They don't have to do things. They can take a loss if it means keeping their pride, and ultimately that hurts some big teams that really want to deal with them. But Volpato has this type of skill, shiftiness, speed, where eye for goal that just makes him, I think, a future number 10 in a game, a style, which really there aren't that many types of players anymore. I think that the generation right under me, the people who are in their 20s right now, and even teens, they wanted to be Ronaldo, play as a number 7. That was a more popular position for the generation right under me. Or even the Neymars of the world. That position was a lot more appealing, a lot more flair, fancy. It goes along with the times. Whereas when I watch Volpato play, he's a baller. And that's the type of player that I really love, that I admire. Very much in the same, sorry if I hit the mic there, very much the similar mold as Dybala. Now, I read a really good piece this morning on Dybala by Edward Stratman on Roma's official website, which was really good. And you should go and take a look. It's on the front page. Edward does these really good tactical analyses for Roma. Top writer, really understands the game. And I want to go to the end, the summary here. I'm not going to blow it because I would like people to read Ed's piece here. He says, although the former Palermo starlet has had a share of injuries over the years, if he can stay fit, and last season he was still Juventus' seventh most used player in Serie A, there's every chance he can massively help propel Roma to the next level under the expert tutelage of Mourinho. Set to be a real X factor for Roma this season, the five-time Serie A winner and former league MVP is unquestionably a huge acquisition, one that could elevate the Giallorossi right into the mix to secure a top four spot. The word that I love that Ed used there was X factor, because that's absolutely what he is. I didn't realize either that he was Juve's seventh most used player in Serie A last season, so that's remarkable. That is a really interesting fact there that Ed picked up. And as I look through these pictures, the one thing that I keep seeing is Zaniolo in central spaces around the box, dropping a little bit deep. And I have to imagine how helpful that's going to be to Mourinho's setup, whether it is the 3-5-2, 3-4-2, or the 4-2-3-1. I'm not so sure what Mourinho is going to do for either. If you get Senesi and a couple different players, or I look at Wijnaldum, right? I'll get to Wijnaldum. I had thought that I was going to save this for a little bit later in this pod. But Wijnaldum, to me, is a player who directly replaces Mkhitaryan in the 3-5-2 in that hybrid regista role that Mickey was playing in. This player who can provide support along the center line, not so much in the defensive midfield role, but along that somewhere in between attacking / middle of the pitch / tries to maintain possession and advance the ball forward, but not necessarily crashing into the box in the 3-5-2. So that's how I imagine Wijnaldum could be if he does sign. There's a couple things like his salary. Supposedly, if he does come to Roma, then PSG would be paying a lot of his salary. It looks like they just want him away from the team. And Nasser is a really interesting personality in that he will do things. He doesn't need the money. So if he gets upset about something, or sometimes he'll just make executive decisions that aren't necessarily financially sound, because financially sound is not his primary objective. So that's what makes PSG so interesting to deal with. And also scary if you're a player that wants out, because they might just let you sit on the bench and then say, all right, we'll lose you on a free. If we lose you on a free, big deal. I lost 40 million euros. 40 million euros compared to hundreds of billions of euros is a drop in the bucket, man. So anyway, moving off of Dybala and Volpato, and yes, check out Ed's piece today. Roma does go private. They reach the 95% quota in order that they can be delisted off of the Milan Stock Exchange, which is a big deal. Now, what that entails is Roma will get autonomy. They would not have to share their books. They get strength, a financial and upper hand in negotiating, because they don't have to explain every single thing off their books. They can, I don't want to say like mixed sponsorship deals, but they can have deals which are deemed conflicts of interests for publicly traded companies. So now they don't have to worry about that. There's a lot more autonomy and privacy when a team is publicly owned, especially when it does come time. If this family ever does sell Roma, it is a big, big bargaining chip that the club is privately owned. And hopefully it can. I think the Gracchi brothers on Twitter asked me what's the downside of having it privately owned. I guess that it's up to the will of one family, just the ownership at that point, that if things go bad, there is no board, there is no voting upon by shareholders or anything like that. I wouldn't count that as a negative, though, for this for the Friedkins, though. I see it only as a plus. Very serious, business-savvy family. So to me, it's an advantage. By the way, I did switch the pattern on my microphone for today. So if it sounds weird in the comments, just let me know. But I think this one might be a little better. It's just for front facing. So I want to get to these comments real quick. Ishmael says, Sangre Dad was on the radio, and he's from my hometown, and he said it would be a dream for his son to be coached by Mourinho. Yeah, I think everybody would love to be coached by the special one. HH says, Genie, referring to Wijnaldum, will be the replacement of Mickey, and he will score more. Yeah, when he played at Liverpool, one thing I noticed about Wijnaldum was he was not afraid to go for a goal, and the man seemed like he had a really hard shot. Like this guy could play. And I think he is another one of those players who raises the quality of the team. The one thing I would be concerned about Wijnaldum is his time at PSG, but like I said, those are such interesting and rare circumstances at PSG that a player could look a certain way and go there and be deemed absolutely a different type of style, or just loses his form based upon the team. I have seen that team firsthand just play some strange, unorganized football where it's just left to the individuals, and that really does hurt team players. So maybe it's better to base opinions on Wijnaldum based off of his Liverpool form and what he showed there and what he could actually bring to the team. I think that he would settle very well. I think Wijnaldum is probably a big personality, a guy who would thrive in a city that gives him a lot of attention. So Ishmael says PSG makes Messi look average. They definitely, it was very weird. Messi had an incredible season, but he was playing so much deeper, especially with a true center forward in front of him. He was still picking out passes, but it was not the sensational breaking down the lines, putting defenders on his heels player that we were so familiar with at Barcelona. And that's just a regretful path by Barcelona. It's sad to see actually what happened to them in a sporting sense, in that they made such bad purchases and ultimately lose the player who represented their club, who symbolized their club. So I really would have loved to see, I think from just a sporting sense, take out the team and rivalry aspect of it, but from a sporting sense, it would have been such a beautiful story. One last fairy tale for football, to see the greatest player probably ever walk off and integrate himself into the next wave of Barcelona. But instead it's really ugly, and Barcelona has to start from scratch. They just signed Lewandowski. I have no idea how they pulled that off in their accounting. HA says, do you think that Roma will go for Belotti? I wouldn't doubt it. However, I think there's still time for Eldor to get his chance. That if Roma does not sign Belotti on a free, that I wouldn't worry if they don't bring in another center forward, in the chance that I do really want to see Eldor and what he could do. But maybe Eldor slides in as a winger again in the two, or as a second striker alongside Abraham when needed off the bench, rather than a pure replacement for Abraham. But Belotti is a strong forward. He can play with his back to goal. He can hold the ball up. He can make simple passes. He works for the team. He is he's a goal scorer. Before he tore his ACL, Cairo wanted something like almost 100 million euros for him. And of course, times change and players get older. But I do think Belotti would be an interesting player there. The guy from Dortmund, yeah, he's a massive center back. Zui, his name just gets away from me at the moment. But interesting but opportunity there. I don't know much about him other than his size, but I hear that he's injury prone. But if anyone has any more information, that would be really interesting. I'd be really interested to hear it. Do I think Veretout is going to Marseille? I don't know. I think Veretout is a great player. Ultimately, he has to do what's best for him. He's in the prime of his career. So if he's just used as a rotation, it's I don't know if that's what he would want as a player. He's always been nothing but a professional. Once again, I really like him, and he has a great not eye for goal, but eye for the pass. He led Roma in assists 2 seasons ago. Even last year, he was some top 5 most goals on the team. Even so, in the fact that he was a rotational player. So Veretout is a player that to me will be missed, but I think ultimately one that hasn't meshed as well as I would have liked under Mourinho, where he could have been that center mid. But that just comes down to a player's tactical flexibility and what the manager deems what he needs out from him. AJ says, I think Volpato will take the place of Felix unless Felix starts taking his chances. I'm going to be interested to see what happens with Felix, especially as this team gets strengthened and the roster gets a little bit deeper. What will happen with where Felix will find his chances, because now at this point, he's not going to go back to the Primavera. So if he's not going to do that and he's not going to be used, at least in the rotation, then what is there? And maybe that's a loan. So I think that Felix will ultimately be loaned. But I'm interested to see what happens with Volpato as well. So if he's going to be loaned or whatever his future might entail. Let's look at this one. This is the first comment from today I want to jog back to. Zaniolo lost weight and changed his game a lot. So today, or maybe yesterday, Boniek, who is one of the greatest Polish players ever, he's about 66 years old now. He played for 3 years for Juventus and then 3 years for Roma in the 80s. I would like to read his thoughts on Zaniolo, and as he says, has the potential to be even better center forward than Dusan Vlahovic if used in that role. So, he said, Zaniolo has incredible potential. If you ask people what his position is, everyone will give you a different response. In my view, he is a classic number 9. He can protect the ball, has physical strength, turns defenders well, is good in the air, and can shoot. I always say when I see Vlahovic play that Zaniolo could do just as well, even perhaps better, because he also has that strong physicality. He really is a great player. So what do you make of that? Ask yourself. We see Zaniolo get the winning goal in the Conference League final, holds off a defender off his shoulder, scores, excellent goal. He is strong. He can hold players off. He can play with his back to goal, as I mentioned, Belotti can, of course, in a bit of a different way. He can run at defenders. So does that make Zaniolo the perfect number 9? I don't think we've seen his finishing skills well enough to say that or not. But what I do see from Zaniolo is a player who loves to try and take his chances, one that wants to shoot, and that is really a core skill set or core mentality of a center forward, that they do want to shoot a lot. There's other players, maybe like take any creative playmaker, and they want to pass. Their mentality is pass first. But Zaniolo, he is definitely a shoot first player. So when it comes to the build-up, there are many moments where I really liked Zaniolo running at defenders from the halfway line, playing in the final ball when he did, because he often messed up quite a bit. But I won't hold it against him for his return season. Then I think of goals like the one against Atalanta, him breaking and getting into the box, interchanging with Abraham so well. I'm not sure number 9 is Zaniolo's best position, but definitely somewhere between a 9 and a 10, if that exists. Is that just a 10, where that player is just a more offensive, like a striker mentality 10, but plays a little bit deeper? Whereas to me, a 10 is someone who looks to set up first. They are the give and go player, where if they get the ball a little bit before their center forward, they pass and move, unless, of course, the first idea is to play that ball in. That to me is what a 10 does. So could he be that more offensive number 10 minded player behind Abraham? Yeah. But center forward, I have to stick with what I said, even above this, one of what Pele says, one of the greatest, top 100 players that are still alive, Boniek. So I can't cave to every opinion. I gotta stick up for myself once in a while. Anyway, couple. HH says that Jose loves Volpato and will not loan him. You might be right. That's why Jose plays Zaniolo as a 9. So like right now, when Zaniolo plays on the flanks, he's like a 7. But I'm really interested to see now what happens with Dybala in the mix. Also says his weakness last season was understanding of the game and lack of passes, but it changed. I do think that Zaniolo will continue to develop. I don't think it's the final product, but anyway, a lot to see, and we'll see if Zaniolo stays because his contract is expiring ultimately, and there hasn't really been any novations with the contract renewal, as far as I've heard or I read online. You know, I'm only privy to what I can read on Forza Roma or other websites like that. But my intuition tells me that with Dybala signing, that he is much more persuaded that he becomes a cast on in this character, in the cast of these characters who are now going up another level, and that he's a bit more persuaded to want to stick it out and be a player with this new Roma, one that just won a title, one that has Mourinho, one that is looking for a stadium. And on to that point, so there's been some novations coming out about the stadium. It looks to be about 55 to 65,000, enough that it can host a Champions League final. And the location is still Pietralata, which is close to the Tiburtina train station. So there wouldn't need to be an overhaul of construction the way that they would have needed in Tortivale, which the city was never happy about. They seem to be a bit more open, at least not so much negativity as we heard before. So I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic for Pietralata for this new stadium. The shape, the designing, there is no architect as far as I know. I don't believe Dan Meis has been hired on this. He was the architect for the original stadium under Palota, those renderings. So there's rumors that it will be somewhere between a square and an oval and a circle, which is very non-discriminate. I think that's a way for journalists to write. We really have no idea what it's going to look like. But anyway, whatever it's going to be sensational. I have no doubt about that. If they're going to get a stadium built, you have to know that it's going to be designed impeccably. It's going to be improvised by the history, by the 2,000 plus history of ancient Rome. So it's going to be one of a kind. I can't wait. I'm hoping that, of course, as new stuff comes about, I will definitely be reporting and talking about that. So have no hesitation. Do I think Mourinho will be in the new stadium? You know, I hope that there will be a statue of him in the new stadium after he wins the Europa League, or maybe even Serie A in the following season. So you never know. One other thing. So we hit Wijnaldum. Another player I wanted to talk about that was linked, before I'm going to get to my last point, which will be Adidas, is Lucas Torreira. So last season at Fiorentina, he was awesome. I thought he was one of the best players in the league, regardless, one of the best defensive midfielders, just generally one of the best players. So Torreira, his job under Vincenzo Italiano was to protect the defense, to be that roving defensive midfielder. Get the ball, repossess, slide tackle, do whatever you have to do, get it out to the wings quickly, and then they explode and get the ball into the center forward in very quickly. Italiano's tactic is counterattacking. It's not totally different from Mourinho's. Maybe like the mechanics of where the ball goes and the outlets are, but in a sense, Torreira would be the perfect, in my mind, the perfect candidate to fill in that defensive mid position, in the sense that his price, value, age, where he's going in his career, his mentality, his toughness, his grinta, and how Roma is so attracted to those types of players like Nainggolan. So to me, he just makes so much sense. He scored a bunch of goals last year too. And that became because, yes, he was holding that defensive midfield role, but he made these dynamic bursting runs, very athletic, into the opponent's box, where even one of his goals was a tap-in because he was advancing so much. HA says it's weird Fiorentina didn't go for him because he was so good. And I really agree. I have no idea why Fiorentina did not activate that. I have to believe that there was something going on between the player and the club, because for me, it didn't make any sense. I'm like, you have a clause for 15 million euros, 1-5, €15 million for one of the best players in the league, and you didn't activate it? Why? If anything, you could have just resold him, could you not? For 20, 25 million? But Italiano, he was one of his he was a fundamental player under him. So for the life of me, I have a hard time digesting why Fiorentina did this. But I do think that he just makes so much sense for Mourinho on every level. And I think he would be a great player in Rome. I think the city would love him. And he's a player I really believe in. I loved him from his time at Sampdoria. He went through a tough time in his life for personal issues when he was at Arsenal. But there is such a blending of Argentinian and Italian culture, often similar, because a lot of Italians moved to Argentina. So even Argentinians, they focus more on pasta than they do on rice, for example, in their foods. So it would be such a good fit. I just see him as like that tough, hard-nosed defender with that athleticism about him who would be so good under any formation that Mourinho plays. I have to imagine that Mourinho just wanted a jump in quality. Oliveira was fine, but maybe not of the caliber that would call for this future Roma. I think Oliveira would be a good option at 3 million for Fiorentina, for example. A guy who could add a little bit of experience, quality, and depth, but not necessarily one that takes you over the edge, because now it's going to get very competitive. Roma's going to be in the Europa League, fighting for the Champions League places. So I think the overall quality of this roster is evolving and going higher. Anyway, New Balance. Let's talk about them for a second. Roma has an option for a third year with New Balance, so it's a 3-year deal. It was, of course, last season was New Balance's first with Roma. This will be their second, and 23-24 is the option for the third. There are rumors going on that Roma will not renew, and in fact will go with Adidas. It's not that I don't like New Balance. I do. I think they make a quality product. Their shoes are great. Their training kit, I got to see their jerseys up close. Everything is a really nice material. It's really made well. It's a good product. The fashion side of it, I thought Nike did a little bit more with the sweaters and the overall like street apparel, which I'm really into. So I think a lot of fans are too. They like that collaboration between casual wear and team stuff with like using old vintage logos or just new designs. Like I thought Nike did a lot of that, where I thought, and I think that New Balance could have put a little bit more out. I liked what they did with Chinese New Year, and they did Year of the Tiger. I thought that stuff was pretty cool, but just not enough of it. I just needed more. But nothing against New Balance, but if Adidas do sign, I think it'll be a big deal. HH making great points today, man. Yes, fits into the owner's vision, would make Roma a global brand, attract new fans for sure. Like, look, I live in Jersey City, in New Jersey, United States of America. I go to the Adidas store every so often, pick up stuff. I'm like, yo, you got a sale? And they're like, nah. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to leave. I'm going to come back when you got that sale. And then I'll come back with a pair of shorts or a training kit, or a track top, whatever it is. And the one thing I go in every time, I go to the back of the store, and what's there? It's a Juventus jersey. And I'm like, yo, like I can't go into the New Balance store or the casual. Well, I guess nobody goes to like sporting goods stores anymore. It is a bit more specialized, but you can't go into the New Balance store and find like Roma gear, and that is a bit of a problem. Whereas with Adidas, it's just marketed and it's so much more available. Where yes, it does become a global brand, and people start to identify the club's crest with who the club is and the players, especially now that you have a guy who's selling record numbers of shirts like Dybala. Well, with that, you need to make it accessible so that when people see it, that it's easily purchased, that they can consume it readily. It's readily available. So that global vision is something that is paramount to the growth of teams, because right now and in the future, football is just so commodified that whoever doesn't take on this global approach will be left behind. They will become a upper mid-tier But if you want to get to the elite level with the biggest clubs of the world and be able to make choices on your own and just have that autonomy and have your own private stadium, then you'll ultimately be the successful team. But if you don't, you'll just get surpassed because of the way that modern economics and modern football, commercial football, is going. And it's just the reality. Regardless of your opinions, if, the calcio moderno aspect, there's a big push against that in Italy. But ultimately, that is the future. There is no denying it. And the clubs that do not adopt those policies and stay with small equipment manufacturers and shirt sponsors and rent out their stadium, they're just going to be left behind. And that's the truth. HA says, look, I should work more on my YouTube channel next season. Yeah, I've got a couple things out. I got a couple things I've been thinking about. I want to do live matches, like some commentary, with like a little graphic that says the score and who scored, like a little bit more interactive interface is what I've been thinking about, really. I would love to do that. That's the plan. I would love to be going to Roma clubs like around the country and hosting from there if I could figure all that out. I hope the audio quality was a little better today. I've been trying to work on that. Any tips you have, please, write in my YouTube, anything. I'm totally open to advice for sure. I love hearing from people. I really appreciate the fact that people joined in today. Of course, subscribe and all that stuff. I think he will leave Arsenal. I can't imagine him going back. But there we go. So that's the recap for this weekend. I'm going to keep on doing these throughout the summer throughout the year, as things pop up. The summer happens very quickly. The mercato evolves. The transfer market evolves so quickly. Things happen and they change every day. And it seems, especially with Roma as of recently, there's just so much news. So I'm happy to be that person who can, excellent. That person who can push that and what's the word? Not explain, but like convey that, as much as it keeps coming out. So I appreciate that. Post-match analysis, yes, for sure. Jose Mourinho press conference reaction. That's a good idea. The presser reaction. I like that a lot. I think that's smart. Especially because he's got the best pressers in the business, man. So every time that guy has a press conference, it's I love it. I just love hearing him speak because he's not really wrong. Like he's so truthful. It's like you can't deny it. You'd be like, yeah, the quality's not there. And you're like, what are you gonna say? Like, he's right. He's always been right. Look at the players he's called out in the past and the ones he's pushed up and promoted. Anything I can think of off the top of my head, I'm going to check before I end this because I probably won't do another one until Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to check what's going on here on some of my websites. Some links about Carles Perez going to Celta, probably Spanish, Viga. Pogba says, I asked Dybala to stay at Juve, but he feels happy at Roma. Wow. All right, Pogba. Interesting. Zagadou is that player's name from Borussia Dortmund. So, yeah, I guess watch that space. The 21 for Dybala. I wanted to mention that. Dybala's 21, I think, was a great decision instead of taking the 10. Now, if he does sign like a contract extension, I think that maybe he should consider taking 10. He said that, you can't just take the 10 in Rome. It has to be deserved. And if he does that over the next 2 years and he does want to stay long-term, then I think Dybala would make a great number 10. But I think he's going about it in the perfect way. I think that was an excellent PR move. If Anyi says, we need to test the live match reaction with the game against Tottenham. Yeah, it's a good idea. That's a good idea. True. Yeah. The Mourinho faithfuls. You're right, for sure. But for anyone who's is a massive Mourinho fan, he's been doing a great job, man. The city loves him. Mural's still up in Rome somewhere. So he's just been really, really adored by the city. And I'm sure that one day or somehow there will be some type of statue of Mourinho, and the city's in love with him, and he's totally on board with the ownership. It seems so, and he's a manager I really look up to because he says the truth. I'm an Interista, but I have a soft spot, says Joe Fraques. I have a soft spot for Roma and love your channel, Wayne. Very happy that you got Dybala and Zaniolo staying. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm glad Zaniolo hopefully is staying for now as well. It's just the weight of number 10, and the comparison will be a lot of weight. Yeah, for sure. Guys, if you know any Mourinho lovers as well, spread this page because we'll be talking quite a lot about him. And as you can see with the thumbnail, that's going to go up on this recording. I'm going to put it up red as soon as this is done. I always try to throw in a little Mourinho, doing like a hand gesture or something like that. Anyway, I'm going to go try to find a new leather jacket today. That's my mission for the fall. So it's crazy because you think it's like 40 something degrees out Celsius right now, like almost 100 degrees. But in New Jersey, the weather changes so quick. By like the middle of October, it's going to be cold. I'm going to need that leather jacket. So I'm going to go to the outlets tonight, spend some time with my wife, maybe get like a bagel or bacon or something, egg and cheese. So enjoy my Saturday. Hit up the beach on Monday. And that's the plan. Guys, I hope you are having a good weekend. Hope you stay out of trouble. Have a good time. You know, Mourinho lovers dying for English YouTube Roma channel. Hell yeah. Guys, give it a thumbs up, all that stuff. I appreciate it. You have a good weekend. We'll talk soon. Ciao.